Hi, Pete Wardell here, and in this interview I'm talking to Rob James. Now, Rob is not only an extremely busy working professional magician, he's also one of the guys behind The Session, which is the UK's fastest growing convention, and also one of the guys behind Post Gigs, which was originally called Boo Kings, and is an online referral site for magicians, and is used by a lot of the top UK professionals to pass work around amongst themselves. Now, during the interview there is quite a bit of background noise. Rob was having his house rewired at the time, so apologies for that. But as for the content of the interview, I think you'll find it fascinating. I started talking to Rob about the way he markets himself and how he positions himself in the marketplace.
I don't know whether you'll be offended by this or not, I'm not sure. But one of the things I think you've done very well is pitched yourself as a really safe bet.
Oh yeah, I pitched straight for the middle line. Oh yeah, that's a conscious choice and it's very deliberate. But I sell my very commercial and kind of like, you know, I try not to do anything too like offensive or whatever. But yeah, that's designed because, you know, what's that old cliche about never give someone a reason not to book you?
Yeah.
You know. But also, I think because of the sort of how I look and how I am or whatever, I don't think I couldn't get away with like a sort of a dynamo kind of look, or you know, even like I'm trying to think of any other, you know, even like someone like you know, you or Nigel Mead, you've got that kind of like swagger about you, and that's kind of your kind of thing. And there's other people like, you know, Mark Spellman, who looks kind of weird, and you know, but I don't look like that, and I haven't really got that kind of attitude. So I kind of figured that I'd just kind of try and sell myself entirely on competency. Yeah. Well, they want a close-up magician, and they look on my website and they go, "Oh, that guy looks like he's going to do a good job."
Yeah.
But you know, I don't think I'd recommend that approach for everybody. You know, just because it's just you know, once you start to sell yourself as being the same as everybody else, then unfortunately the only thing that you can really compete with against your competitors is on a sort of price and service, really, which makes life a bit tricky. You know, so. I think if you are able to sort of push any kind of unique aspect of your performing persona, then you really should do it, and you really should try and push it. So you know.
But
I do think I understand the general close-up magic marketplace in this country.
Yeah.
And I think that I do pitch basically towards getting most of the work that's out there. What I want people to do is if they look at my website, or they speak to me on the phone, they go, okay, this guy knows what he's doing and has done it before. And, you know, I try and sort of mention a few things on my website that I've done and achieved without it sounding too pretentious or too arrogant. You know, like saying I've done the Magic Castle in Hollywood, which sounds massively impressive to certain people who say, you know, achieve these certain things, or, you know, you've been flown to Dubai and done all this stuff. You know, it kind of shows competence without coming across as too arrogant and too pretentious. I hope. You know what? I try and establish credibility. And something else, you know, if you ever look at my, I'm sometimes slightly kind of embarrassed by the paradox of I don't ever like magicians that boast and brag about work and you know and go on Facebook and talk about, you know, oh, just off to do wedding number 2 of the day and all this kind of. I fucking absolutely hate that kind of stuff, and it just drives me crazy. And I don't do that. And if I'm in a conversation with another magician who's talking about the sort of all the work they're doing, I just keep my mouth shut because I just find it to be an abhorrent and vile and vulgar conversation. And, you know, and if you're the kind of person that always goes on about the sort of work that you have, I always think, you know, even magicians, they either get jealous or they think you're bullshitting them. You know, it's one of the. So neither of those things for me is a successful outcome. You're trying to promote yourself to bookers, not your peers.
Yeah.
I've always been fascinated by people who are in the sort of magic industry that are genuinely completely unknown, right?
Yeah.
But these are the guys, like, I mean, they're even unknown to some people. That, like, do you know Matt Windsor?
I know
Magic
Matt.
Right now, he's in the Northwest. In my opinion, he's the number one guy, right?
Yeah.
And he's busy and he's working all the time. He's a nice guy, I've worked with him, and he goes into the venue, and people go, "Oh, hi, Matt. How you doing?" You know, because everyone knows him, and he
Yeah.
gets on with people. But like, this is a guy that no magician who's an amateur would have a clue who he was,
Yeah.
right? Same goes from like Jamie Raven, someone like that.
Yeah.
No one knows who he is, right?
But he's working flat out.
He's busy all the time, you know what? But you can see when if you work with these guys, you see why they're busy, because they're perfect people, and you know
Yeah.
they do everything pretty much.
An area that Rob really excels in is marketing himself on the internet.
First few years of my career, I was mailing out agencies and event planners. I was attending agency showcases. I was doing restaurant work as much as I possibly could for about. At one point I was doing 3 restaurants a week for 100 quid each, and that was my main source of income. You know, that was probably back in about 2002, 2003, and I was I was doing all that kind of thing as well. But I think in the last 6 years, I've pretty much abandoned all that kind of traditional marketing. Type in magician and anything, I used to come up number 1, but not anymore, because there's loads of people that are doing it. But you know what? I don't mind that really, because that's inevitable and that's always going to happen. And you know, it's not much of an issue really. But the kind of thing that, I mean, people will. There's a few guys that were doing it like maybe 8 years ago, probably. And I used to be on Google AdWords. Okay, you know, the pay-per-click advertising. My bill was probably about £40 a month. Okay.
Right.
Of which I used to generate possibly £3,000 worth of work from doing it.
Yeah.
Right? Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you want to, I put it back on just like a local area, and I did it like a couple of months ago, and it was I think I paid something like £30 in the day.
Really?
Right? And I just thought, Christ, this is insane, you know, because you know, obviously the more people that are doing it, the higher the cost goes up for the top slots. And there were the guys who are on the top, they're all paying a lot of money. You're looking at like well over in excess of £1,000 a month for that top position. So
right.
it's become so saturated. But you know, if you couldn't generate work from doing it, then I guess it wouldn't be saturated.
I suppose
right?
if you're paying 1,000 and still making 3,000 or whatever it is, it's still viable, isn't it? It's still worthwhile, isn't it? But
there are certain aspects of the marketing that I deployed a while ago, which is kind of like it's been almost like adopted by the magic community as a whole. Like I think years ago, I realized that when I kind of found it funny when bookers would ring up and they'd use all sorts of crazy terms to describe close-up magic, right? Because close-up is the correct term, right?
Yeah.
You get people saying, "Oh, we're looking for a tabletop magician," right? Or we're looking for some close hand magic. That's always a good one. I had another one the other week. Oh, a bit of floor magic we're looking for. I thought, you know what, table magic, that's such a stupid term. Or table magician, it's not even the correct term. But I thought, you know what, if that's what people are referring to it as, then you may as well refer to yourself as that, right?
Yeah.
But now, I think pretty much all close-up magicians refer to themselves as close-up and table magicians, you know, which is so they all do it. So everyone does it now.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a shame, because if people look at, let's say, my website and a few others, they might go, oh, they all look the same, you know. The thing about SEO is that it's I think my friend Alan Hudson, he always tells people it's either. He's very good at it. But he says it's either thousands of pounds investment or thousands of hours investment.
Yeah.
There's no short fix to it. You have to spend a lot of money or spend a lot of time, and it's, you know what, it's really, really, really boring if you do it, because it's like nuts, because the basic nuts and bolts of it just take ages, and it's tedious. But you know, it's kind of, yeah, it's worth doing. But you know, I've in the last couple of years though, because everything has become so saturated, and because I kind of find it, the more I spend time in the magic industry, the more frustrating I find it having to compete on price against what bookers perceive to be exactly the same service. And you know, I know people have been maybe operating for 1 year, and their website looks better than mine, and their credentials look better than mine, and their photos look better than mine, and I have to compete with these people for the same job, and their course, their price is probably going to be lower.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like it's kind of annoying. So that's why I kind of like I focus really heavily on the referral marketing between my peers. I find that that's really been significant with my business. I mean, you say that how you were slogging around residencies and that sort of thing, and I mean, my first magic job was getting paid, I think, 50 quid or something like this for a Sunday lunchtime, 2 or 3 hours in a pub on a Sunday. It was a pub by a dual carriageway, right?
Nice.
It was a gig I inherited from another magician that decided he didn't want to do it anymore, and that was my first job. And then I filled in for people in restaurants, and I did, Frankie and Benny's restaurants and all this kind of thing. And I sort of did a few agency jobs and that sort of thing. So I like to think of that period as being my apprenticeship, right? But you know what? These days, you don't have to do that. You can just get yourself the best looking website and then
or
put some
steal
money
someone's
into
website, which is what happens to you, doesn't it?
It happens all the time. In fact, it drives me crazy, but I try not to think about it too much. Otherwise, it affect my blood pressure.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the problem now. I mean, it used to be that people would steal your routines and your effects, and now they steal your marketing tools as well.
And then we started talking about the process of generating new ideas and new material.
So in fact, I sometimes find it hard to sort of completely relax because I'm always thinking about sort of ideas for various things, only some of which ever come off. Like, post gigs was something I was thinking, I wonder if I could do this and this to help solve a few problems. And it's only but lots of things like that. But in terms of like, so you asked about sort of material or like, well, my commercial material is not original material, but it's hopefully it's nothing. There's no stolen lines or.
But it's executed well.
It's executed competently, and it's and I like to think that my performance style is kind of funny, and some of the lines I use are original, and but in terms of like the actual material itself, it's not especially original. But you know what? If you try doing stuff which is slightly less commercial, but you still think it's going to work. And I've tried this, and it goes sort of okay. And then you just do like, I don't know, if you can steal a watch, right, or put a bottle through a table, or do extreme burn or something like this, right? These are great tricks, right? And nothing in the sort of general published literature of magic. There's not much that tops with like all the commercial stuff that people are doing. There's not much. It's not much better than that, is it? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It'd be lovely to do something. I mean, that's why the other performing avenues are nice to try that kind of thing, like to try something new in other aspects. And in fact, the performing that I enjoy is when I'm doing stuff which is new and I've sort of constructed from scratch. So I put together 10 minutes of brand new material from scratch, and I absolutely love doing that. And the last time I did put anything new together was my competition act, which was just some ideas in my head that I wanted to sort of put into practice and see how that went. So, but I think that's important as a performer, because I heard someone describe close-up magic once as being it's not really a performance; it's more of a service that you give, right? Right. Because, as a performer, I mean, I started out in magic. I wanted to. I was just my first interest was just in card sleights, right? That's all I was interested in. And I sort of learned that, and I started to do a few things here and there. And when I started actually doing gigs, I found that I quite enjoyed the performance aspect of it. And now I think I enjoy the performance aspect much more than all the other sides of it. Yeah. And then you find that, right, you know what? Close-up magic is the worst possible performance environment in the entire world, because you're interrupted and you're pushed out of the way, and people don't give a toss sometimes, and just like, right, this is this, So then I think it's important to try and find avenues where you can actually feed
the creative side of what we do as well.
yeah, I think it's absolutely essential to do it, because otherwise you go crazy doing, if you like performing, then I don't think, then close-up magic is not is not a good place to do it.
Well,
I
I
think.
mean, the biggest problem with creating new material is that if you haven't got somewhere to perform it, then it never gets off the ground, isn't it? I mean, most of us work to a deadline, don't we?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Um,
And did you, I mean, with the Orange Tree and with the show, did you book the venue, book the gig, and then go, shit, I need 10 minutes of material?
that's the only way that I get anything done, is that sheer panic and
Right.
that sort of fear, and the, you know, um, just having that deadline, and knowing that I was going to have to do something of merit
Yeah,
in that time frame. And you know what? It's a bit like, I'm embarrassed to say, I've only put myself in that position twice before. Once for the competition, and then once for this show, right? So it's not 2 times ever. So, and what I found on both occasions is that it kind of completely consumes my mind
yeah,
for about a month before, and that's all I can think about. I'll wake up and I'll think about, oh my God, I must get on with that and do this and this and this, and then it just, you rehearse, and you have to rehearse, and then you get through it and do it, and it's quite, I find it kind of a frustrating process, but also quite rewarding as well. But it's something I don't think, as close-up magicians, I don't think you go through that kind of procedure as much as you should.
No.
You don't even have to be very good to be a close-up magician, do you?
Yeah,
really?
no.
I mean, you don't have to be good technically. You don't have to be good as a performer. You don't have to be good at many things, really. Which is kind of like one of the reasons why I want to sort of look at. That's why I'm doing other things to sort of explore other performing avenues, really.
Yeah.
Just because I find that the barrier to entry in close-up magic is so minimal as to be unbelievably frustrating for me, because you think about this, let's say you put 10 years into a cabaret act, right?
Yeah,
Then you're going to have a great cabaret act, and with original lines, and you're going to know all the timing, and your pacing is going to be great, and it's going to be good and funny and whatever. But you put 10 years into a commercial close-up magic act. What was the point? You see a TV show called Magic Party. Did you ever see this?
no.
It
I'm
was
loving
shown
it
on
already just because of the name.
it was one of the highlights of my week. It was on BBC Northern Ireland or something, but you could watch it on iPlayer, and I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere. But basically, it took like 5 or 6 close-up magicians, and put them on television. Just guys from this country who do gigs or whatever,
Yeah.
and then put them on television, and it just showed how. I was trying to think if maybe there might be 1 or 2 exceptions,
Yeah.
which is my way of covering myself.
Yeah,
for
no,
them.
being sued.
But they were largely terrible,
Yeah.
because they're just terrible performers, and you can get away with so much in close-up magic, because just the nature of the performing environment. You don't have to have anything interesting to say to do the tricks, and if the tricks go well and fool people, then they go, oh, that guy was good, wasn't he? No, he was good. How did he? I'd love to watch magic develop over the last sort of 40 years, really.
Yeah.
If you're from the old school performing, where you were like a cabaret performer, or even like a kids entertainer first, where you have to perform and sell it,
Yeah.
and then you learn close magic afterwards, then you have that mindset. I think a lot of magicians are just guys that can successfully execute some tricks, and then that's what they then do, and they don't have that mindset of a performer. For example, I know nothing about sound or lighting or anything like that, and it's a shame, really, because I think that inhibits me and from doing certain things, and following certain avenues. But I think we should all try and make ourselves a bit better. My biggest frustration in close-up magic is I've been in it now the best part of 10 years, and I don't really think my act has got any better in the last 6 or so, and it's kind of stagnated, just purely because of the environments we have to work in, and I don't really, when I'm doing a close-up gig, I don't think that I'm using myself to my full potential. Anyone that does close-up magic that then does it, that has any kind of intelligence, does it any length of time, they move on to something else.
Yeah.
In some way. for years, I was always I just thought I must just do magic to make money and to get money in and do gigs. And then I remember I met this guy who is a professional circus performer, and one of his things, he played the musical Saw, right? And he said to me, "Do you ever?" I was talking about gigs and performance stuff. He goes, "Do you ever do anything for fun?" I went, "No." Of course I don't. Of course I don't. And then then you know what? The more I think about that in hindsight, the more I can't believe I had that attitude.
So, what does the future hold for Mr. Rob James?
Post gigs is my side business project,
Right?
Which I'm slowly expanding into other territories.
Yeah.
And it's kind of I find that quite interesting because I'm pleased. Well, first of all, I'm pleased it's a useful service, because I couldn't be one of those guys that just tries to sell listings on a wedding directory or something like that, because you just shafting people every day, aren't you? But I wanted to expand our rate so it can still be useful and still be of merit and whatever. But I think that it has the potential to be applied to all sorts of areas and in all sorts of countries as well, actually, as long as we can. But I've found out from the caricaturists that they do business a little bit differently. So I have to think about how I can market into other territories that I don't necessarily understand. So, but that's something I want to do. That's kind of a way to sort of the idea behind that is that I can turn that into more of a side business. That gives me residual income, so that I don't have to do so many close-up gigs to stay in the same kind of
the fuck you fund, as Andy Nyman called it.
Exactly, and that's that's pretty much what it is. I think if I can use that as a side income, then it will still, because one of the hardest things about close-up magic is how can you earn the same and have the same lifestyle in any other job? As a performer, it's hard. I can't think of anything else. To answer your question, post gigs as a sort of sideline, and I want to sort of taking this parlor show, want to sort of get it right so that I can have that as my as something that I can perform for people in different environments, and hopefully get to a point where that will be one of my major sort of incomes. And trying to sideline all the close-up and marginalise it as much as possible, and only do the occasional thing that I know I'm going to enjoy. I had an actor being interviewed, and he said whenever someone comes to him and says, "Can you give me advice on how I can get into films and television and stage and whatever?" he always says, "Well, where are you acting now? Okay, what are you doing now in terms of your acting? Because if anyone is serious about it, they will be doing something. If it's just amateur dramatics or going for castings for television or films or whatever, they'll be doing something. They won't be looking for that magical in, right? So if you want to become a magician, then you just have to don't think what I'll do is I'll get my website in order, then I'll get the bookings in, and don't think that, because that's nuts. You have to think, what can I do to get my act in order? Perform as much as you possibly can. Do as if someone says to you, we're doing a charity night for 50 quid and a charity night, and can you come along for 50 quid and do this? Don't go, no, I can't do that. Do it, because that's the only way that you're going to get the experience of doing it. And do you know what I mean? Or perform in the pub, do as much as you can, just try and get as much possible experience as you can, and get to a point where you genuinely, if you objectively stand back and you look at your act and it's of marketable value, you can sell it. Because if you're trying to if you're focusing mainly on getting the gigs and you can't see you have a substandard product, then you're not doing anybody any favors, are you? So get your act straight first.
Get your act together.
Yeah, because but you know what? It's amazing how people don't really see that as a priority. Before you go out there and think, let's get myself a great looking website with some wonderful made up testimonials on there and some pictures of me, looking happy or moody or whatever, then just think, get to know people that actually do it properly in your sort of area, and just try and get them to pass you a few sort of things they can't do or don't want to do. Like some of the charity inquiries they get they don't want to do, and just spend a bit of time getting to serving a bit of an apprenticeship really, and you can start to sell yourself when you're ready, I think.
Yeah.
A huge thanks to Rob for talking to me, and thank you for listening, and please remember your feedback is really important.